Okay, folks, the NFL is cranking up for another big weekend. We got some interesting games. We got the haves and the have-nots. We've got the contenders and the pretenders. It's been an interesting year because there's so much ineffectiveness by some of the offensive teams in this league right now, and I think we're going through a period of time where we have the really good competitive quarterbacks and we have the ones that are just learning their trade. They may not be around for long, but they're in position right now. We're seeing tremendous mistakes being made by these young, ineffective quarterbacks. A lot of bookmakers are saying this is a chalk league now. The haves against the have-nots, and the have-nots have no chance. Well, to some degree they're right, and they see the bottom line because the favorites have been covering. There's been a lot of situations in primetime games where the favorites and overs have been turning heads. But the last couple of weeks we've seen a few more unders than overs, and particularly 2 weeks ago. But the underdogs are creeping back into the mix. I mean, when you let's look at the first game on the card, Washington at Indianapolis. Well, we all know that Indianapolis is much more together team, better quarterback. And it's interesting, we have Andrew Luck and RG3. These guys came out the same year, and Washington made some big trades to get the RG3 pick, and Andrew Luck has turned out to be a much better quarterback, a different style of quarterback, much more equipped, in my opinion, to last for a longer period of time in the NFL. I'm not high on RG3 at all. I don't like the style. I don't think he's prepared. And the team is suffering. However, you still have to cover this point spread at 9.5 and the total 51. Colts are favored, of course. They're at home. And it's hard to say what you're going to get out of Washington. They're having a lot of internal strife there. They just seem to stick with RG3 even though he can't produce. But I think you're going to see the line move on this game. I think the Colts are going to get the money, even though most people don't like laying big points in the NFL. I think in this case you might see some money on the Colts. Titans go down to the Texans. Neither one of these teams are going anywhere this year. Texans had a shot, keep up with the Colts and possibly sneak in, but they've had quarterback issues. They started the year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. They switched to Mallett. Mallett is now out for the rest of the year because of a torn pectoral muscle. I think he played with that tear in this previous game, and he did not do well, did not look well. He looked much better the week before at Cleveland. I'm sure we're going back to Fitzpatrick here. The Texans are 7-43. Fitzpatrick, of course, does turn the ball over a lot, but he is very experienced, and when you compare him to what the Texans are doing, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the 7 is a good barrier there. It's probably the right number. I don't see much movement. I doubt very much if the Sharps are going to be coming in on any side here, and I don't think the public is really going to care very much. Browns play at the Bills if the Bills can clear the snow. The Bills are playing, of course, tonight, as I'm doing this video on Monday, so we do not have a line. The Browns were a little bit fortunate last week. Hoyer did not play exceptionally well. A few turnovers and a few bad decisions. He might play himself out of a job unless he squares his game a little bit. He got lucky because Atlanta made some mistakes at the end of the game, namely by the coaching staff, that gave Hoyer a chance to come down at the end of the game for a field goal, and he did a good job in that drive. And he made some other good decisions. I happen to like Hoyer. I think he's a good quarterback, certainly not a great one, but he does give them a chance to win games, and his record shows that he wins a lot more than he loses. The next game, San Diego at the Ravens. There's no line on this game either because the Ravens are playing this evening as well. Chargers have flattened out. They started the year out pretty well. Flattened out. They're not the same club. They've suffered some injuries. They got a little bit of help back at the running back position, but they struggled with the Rams. But the Rams have played very well. They're giant killers of the league. And if Sean Hill didn't throw that insane interception at the end of the game, the Rams would have won the game or at least gone into overtime. That's to be determined what that number comes out after tonight's game. The Giants, of course, had the lead against Dallas, and at the end of the game they played like the Giants and gave it up, and the Dallas walked out with a 3-point lead. Victory, I should say, that would have either tied the number or lost the number because there was a lot of 3.5s and 4s. They play at Jacksonville, where Bortles just seems to do a lot better job turning the ball over than anything else he does. And but he needs to be out there because the team's not going anywhere. They knew that, and they have to see whether this kid can develop or not. All these teams that are playing these young quarterbacks are doing so they can determine what they have going into the off season, whether they're going to be drafting or trading for another quarterback situation. Giants opened 1.5, went to 2. The line is 44, the total. The Bengals are playing their third straight road game. That is not a good thing for any team to do. That is it's a lot of wear and tear. They played a good game last week. They played a good game the week before at New Orleans, won both of those games. Now they're laying 4 and totals 44, and they're at Tampa. And Tampa should have beaten the Bears. If you look at the stats, they did everything offensively better than the Bears, except they turned the ball over. I think they fumbled 4 times, lost 2, had a couple interceptions. This is a very tough spot for Cincinnati. Now we go to the Raiders playing at the Rams. Raiders are coming off their first and only victory in the last year. They're playing at the Rams, who, as I said, blew the game, the opportunity to win the game at San Diego after playing a pretty good game. The Rams are 7-43. The Saints are playing tonight, but they'll be at Pittsburgh next week, but there's no line because they are playing this evening. Pittsburgh coming off the bye. The Saints are coming off the Monday night game. Short week traveling to Pittsburgh. Carolina is at Minnesota. Carolina, of course, has had a very disappointing season. They really didn't give Cam Newton much support, although Cam, a tremendously talented young man, has had an off-season with injuries and a surgery in the off-season too. Minnesota has changed quarterbacks a number of times. They're 3 in this game, 41, 42.5, the now total. I don't think you're going to see a lot of support for either side here. Neither team is very good. They're just going through the season, going through the motions, trying to save jobs, and I'm sure the coaching staff is trying to save their jobs as well. Arizona, this is a big game. Arizona coming off the loss against Seattle, 1.5 or 2-point favorite on the road. Total 45 down to 44.5. Atlanta, of course, is not the greatest team in the world. They have offensive tools, but their defense is absolutely terrible. They're in the NFC South, which we may end up with a team that's got 5 wins or 6 wins in winning this division, which is going to be a farce because they potentially could knock somebody out with a 10 or 11 win season for a wild card spot, and they'll be sitting at home. That's a little bit of a farce in the way the playoff system is set up. If you can't win half your games, you shouldn't be allowed to play in the playoffs, in my opinion. But Arizona is, they're going to not want to slip up. And Atlanta, they got a lot to play for. Positions, the coaches, Mike Smith needs to go. He just makes some terrible decisions in game and in preparation. But Arizona's the better team, but they're they have some banged up players too, and they're coming off a tough game at Seattle, which is always physical, and they're playing their second road game in a row. New England, who is beating everybody like a drum, goes to Green Bay, who is beating everybody like a drum. This is a potential preview of the Super Bowl. This is going to be very interesting to watch. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, 3-point favorite, opens 57, up to 58 against New England Patriots and Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. This is the game to watch this week. Obviously, both these teams are going to be in the playoffs, and it's now they just have to get through the season, get in the best position possible, and avoid injuries while they're doing so. The next game is also a big game. Denver Broncos at Kansas City, and if Kansas City didn't lose to Oakland, these two teams would be tied in the AFC West. Well, they did lose to Oakland, and now the game opened Kansas City won, and it's now I should say, 49 up to 49.5. Denver's very hard to stop, but they don't look like the Denver Broncos did 5 weeks ago. This team has slipped back into some mediocrity, a lot more pressure on Peyton Manning. Kansas City, tough football team. Their offense is very mediocre, especially on the passing side, probably 30th or 31st in the league in passing the ball, which is not good enough to keep up with the Denver Broncos, who are right up there near the top in passing the ball. And their running game seems to be getting better. I look for both teams to try to run the ball quite a bit. Kansas City, if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to find a way to throw the ball and get some offensive touchdowns through the air. The next game is a Monday night game, Miami at the Jets. The Jets are playing this evening in Detroit on a neutral field against Buffalo. Miami has been playing very well. They had a chance to beat Denver yesterday, but gave up 22 points in a row to Denver to lose that game that they did cover. They have now played some very good football games lately. The last 6 games, I mean, they almost beat Green Bay, they almost beat Detroit, and they almost beat Denver. Miami's playing very, very well. Ever since their London trip, this team has turned it around. Very dangerous football team. If they can get in the playoffs, they could make some noise. But at 6-5, I don't know if they're going to be able to figure out a way to get in. And that's it for this card, and we'll see you later in the week. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon.